And welcome back to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, as he always does, is Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you as always.
Bob, great seeing you.
So a shakeup in the president's national security team, and I don't know if we saw this coming today, but I think there were some hints this might be coming with Chuck Hagel leaving.
Yeah, some anticipation there would be changes in the national security team, given all the convulsions internationally, given what happened in the elections. But I'm not sure we anticipated that Chuck Hagel would be resigning this soon, this quickly. It's clear that the secretary's had trouble having a voice in the administration. It's also clear that this was a different kind of secretary from the times that we're in. And he came in very much as the voice of rollback of America's presence around the world, rollback of the wars, ending what we did in Iraq, Afghanistan. He now finds himself, and the country finds itself, at a time when we're fighting wars in Iraq and Syria again against ISIS, perhaps staying in Afghanistan a bit more aggressively than we had anticipated, and having to deal with the problems of Russia and even China in the South China Sea. So I think this is a bit of a mismatch of both personality and policy interest, and I think that's why the president and he made this change.
So the world just didn't cooperate with this policy of we're going to roll back defense and kind of bring everybody home. And now you have a situation where we've got fires on all fronts. Hagel just wasn't the right guy, or he wasn't in tandem with the president?
I think the environment didn't cooperate with him in two ways. One, the world wasn't cooperating. This wasn't a time of peace. In fact, things have gotten more complicated and more warlike. Secondly, the politics didn't seem to jibe. The White House has tended to concentrate more of the decision-making around Defense Department issues, everything from budget to operations. And that has rankled not just Secretary Hagel, but also Secretary Panetta and Secretary Gates, who've talked about this recently in the wake of their books. And so I think both the international environment and the internal environment have really marginalized Secretary Hagel, and he's found himself largely without a voice inside and externally.
Sources told our Pentagon correspondent David Martin that Hagel felt micromanaged by the White House. Was he an equal partner at the table, do you think?
I don't think so. And I think that was reflected over and over again, not just on what was happening in the Situation Room or the Oval Office, but also in his role outside and on behalf of the U.S. government. Keep in mind that when we had this major debate about whether or not we were going to use military force against Syria, it wasn't Hagel who was the principal voice on these issues. It was Secretary of State Kerry. And that, to me, was a very clear indication of both a lack of confidence in the secretary internally, in terms of the U.S. government and the administration, and also a lack of voice and role for him externally. And it was really Secretary Kerry who had the voice externally, and the White House that seemed to be micromanaging on the inside.
Also, when we heard from the military on the ISIS point, we tend to hear from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Martin Dempsey.
That's right. And in some ways, the secretary played sort of an ancillary role. He was making important visits, certainly talking to his counterparts. But when you wanted a touchstone as to what was happening in the administration, how the U.S. government was reacting, you wouldn't look to Secretary Hagel first.
So is this the end of the shakeup, do you think? I mean, what about Secretary Kerry at State? What about National Security Advisor Rice? Anybody else going to go, we think?
I don't know. I can't look into the crystal ball. I can't imagine that Secretary Kerry would go. He's right in the middle of the Iran negotiations. We're in the middle of tense situations with Russia with respect to the Ukraine. He's built up a lot of frequent flyer miles, and at this point, this is the time to cash in on those in terms of political capital and diplomatic weight. And so I don't think this is the moment to see Secretary Kerry leave. He's going to get a new deputy, Tony Blinken, from the White House, so that's a bit of a shakeup. But I'm not sure if you're going to see anything else from within the White House.
And as we wrap up, any quick ideas on how the president goes here? What is he looking for now in the next Secretary of Defense?
I think he needs somebody with experience who has credibility both within the government and externally. He may pull back somebody like a Michelle Flournoy, who was Undersecretary of Defense for Policy.
Would be the first female.
First female, so it'd be historic in that regard. Very well respected in Washington on both sides of the aisle. That's important given new Republican Congress.
We will keep an eye on this one. We'll come back to it. Juan, thanks.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you again next time.